tonight. Trump's pick to lead the deportation of illegal immigrants, Tom Homan, promises major steps to close the border on day one. The former chief of the United States Border Patrol, Ron Vitello, joins us to unpack the new administration's next steps. And Texas State Board of Education voted to allow the Bible to be taught in the Lone Star State's elementary schools. Ahead, we'll talk with the Mass Exodus Movement founder, Victory News contributor Keisha King about this and more. But first, let's go to Fior Hernandez with our headlines. Fior.
Thank you, Greg. The Venezuelan government has stopped accepting deportation flights from the United States in January, and the Biden administration simply stopped trying to send them back. Now, more than 800,000 Venezuelan migrants have poured into the U.S. in the last 4 years, and that includes members of the brutal prison gang Tren de Aragua, as reported by the New York Post. Tren de Aragua has now set up shop in at least 16 states, and its members have committed heinous crimes, including the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley in Georgia, as we said. But President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to crack down on this immediately.
And I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil.
Though Venezuela is not taking them back, some immigration officials reportedly say Trump has options, among them sanctions and pulling national aid, or to forcefully deport TDA members without the permission of the Venezuelan government. Tom Homan, President-elect Trump's pick to lead the mass deportation of illegal immigrants efforts, told Newsmax Friday there are several steps Trump can take on day one to ease the border crisis, but it could take months to stabilize the situation.
There's things he can do immediately, end catch and release, put the third safe country agreements in. They're both game changers, but Remain in Mexico is the biggest game changer. So I know discussions already are happening. If we can get the Remain in Mexico program back in quickly, that will move the numbers down incredibly. But ending catch and release on day one is going to send a strong message to the world. You can't cross this border illegally, which is a crime, and get released in the United States. You will be detained or removed. You take a choice.
KTRH News Radio reported that Homan highlighted some 700,000 illegal immigrants with felony convictions are roaming free in the U.S., then noted deportations are at an all-time low. Democrat-led New York will shutter 12 migrant shelters before the end of the year, just weeks before President-elect Donald Trump begins his second term in Oval Office. Mayor Eric Adams' office told Fox News Digital 2 hotels turned shelters in the city have already closed, while 10 other shelter facilities across the state are earmarked for closure by December 31st. Mayor Adams' office said there are currently 58,000 migrants still staying in taxpayer-funded shelters. The city's website states that the crisis could cost taxpayers around $12 billion over the next 3 fiscal years without the policy changes. Donald Trump has promised to seal the southern border and carry out the largest deportation operation in the history of the U.S. Tim?
Fior deported 4 times, and with 5 DUIs on his record, illegal Salvadoran immigrant Jose Guadalupe Menjivar Alaz was sentenced to 24 years behind bars in Colorado. Menjivar Alaz killed a mother and her son while driving intoxicated last year. He was estimated to be going 80 to 100 miles per hour when he crashed on December 12th of 2023. According to the Boulder District Attorney's Office, in days leading up to the deadly crash, the court allowed the defendant to wait out of custody for a bed in the work release program over their office's objection. Even with cases like these in the books, Democrat Mayor of Denver Mike Johnston recently stated he would mobilize Denver police and thousands of residents to block federal authorities from carrying out Trump's deportations in his city. Even compared it to 1989's Tiananmen Square violent protests in China. But after backlash, seems to be walking that statement back a bit.
Would I have taken it back if I could? Yes, I probably wouldn't have used that image because that's an image I hope we can avoid. What I was trying to say is this is an outcome I hope we can avoid in this country. I think none of us want that.
Johnson maintains he would join protesters if he sees deportations are violating the rights of residents and is willing to go to jail for it. Greg?
Joining us now is the former chief of the United States Border Patrol who served as director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the Trump administration, Ron Vitello. Welcome back to Victory News.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, Denver Mayor Mike Johnson, you just heard him say, I will use police to block the feds from deporting illegals. The next day, an illegal alien in Denver was charged with raping a 14-year-old girl. I want you to listen to what Senator Rand Paul says is in store for the mayor of Denver. I'll get your response. Here it is.
And I would suspect that he would be removed from office. I don't know whether or not there'd be a criminal prosecution for someone resisting federal law, but he will lose. And people need to realize that what he is offering is a form of insurrection where the states resist the federal government.
Insurrection. That's a strong word. Why aren't these blue city mayors protecting citizens rather than the illegals?
That's a good question. There is no reason for people like this mayor to protect illegal aliens that are in the country who also commit other crimes. Your story just showed the death and destruction that are caused by people who don't deserve to be in this country. They came illegally, they were not inspected, and nobody invited them here. And they do terrible things all across the country. And this mayor really needs to figure out what he wants to do for a living, because as the mayor, I want him to protect the citizens of Denver. I want to have safe streets, no potholes. You want to have a police force that responds to the needs of the community. Why is he protecting illegal aliens against the federal government who is charged with protecting the border and instituting an immigration system that has integrity? So it's ridiculous for him to say that. And if he wants to be an activist, then resign your mayorship and go out on the picket line and protest the federal government. You have a right to do that under the First Amendment. You do not have a right to disregard federal law in your city. That is, I don't know if it's insurrection, but it's flouting federal law, just like the Confederates did in the Civil War. This is not what we're supposed to do in the United States. He's there to protect people, not be an activist. I think he should resign and move into the activism and stay away from, protecting people, because he can't do it very well.
Yeah, it's a very well said, Ron. What does the appointment of Tom Homan as border czar mean to the men and women serving in U.S. Customs and Border Patrol?
Well, help is on the way. They have someone in Tom Homan and the president in the Oval Office who cares about what the Border Patrol does and is enthusiastic for them to be successful. So he's going to give them the tools that they need to make this problem smaller at the border and institute a deportation regime to cover down on what happened over the last almost 4 years, the largest mass migration we've ever seen in the history of the country. And so Tom was a frontline operator. He operated very effectively in ICE headquarters as a senior executive, and now moves up into the White House to do the same. So people on the line know that help is on the way, and they're going to be enthusiastic for him.
Okay, now this one shocked me a little bit, but not really when you figure it's the United Nations. The United Nations is providing prepaid debit cards and cash to migrants traveling toward the U.S. border using funds heavily backed by American tax dollars. $372 million in cash assistance for over 600,000 migrants. Does this kind of program fuel more illegal migration to our country, what the UN's doing?
It absolutely does. It disregards the borders in the hemisphere. It's disregarding borders in Europe. And the UN has plenty to do, that they don't need to fund illegal migration around the world, including to our own border.
Okay, the Secretary Mayorkas, his days are numbered. How do you think he's going to be remembered in his time under the Biden administration?
Well, he should be remembered for his failure to stand up for the workforce, most of all. But he also failed to protect the American people, right? Remember, this is the guy that said he didn't have a crisis on the border, that it wasn't a problem, that the border was in control during the worst mass migration we've ever seen in the country. And so he will go down as a failure. But because he's on the left, someone will give him a cushy job in a law firm in D.C. or someplace like that. And we probably won't hear from him again. But that's the way it goes. People on the Trump team get blacklisted for life, and guys like that will find a good job in the Beltway.
Yeah, hopefully they save their documents up there. Be sure to learn more about Ron and his work to strengthen our borders and call government to account for our security. Just visit ronvitello.com. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving this week.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.